Welcome to Leading the Rise, a series exploring how HR leaders are leading through one of the biggest shifts the workplace has seen in decades, the rise of AI. In each episode, we sit down with leaders navigating this shift in real time, using AI to sharpen insight, strengthen leadership, and elevate decision-making, all the while keeping people at the center of transformation. This series is brought to you in partnership with our friends at WorkHuman, who are helping organizations build stronger cultures by making work more human, more connected, and more meaningful. Welcome everyone. Today I'm joined by Brandon Sammut, Chief People and AI Transformation Officer at Zapier. Brandon, welcome to Leading the Rise series. How are you doing, my friends?
Quite well, good to see you.
Excellent. Well, I want to kind of start off here, Brandon, with your role's grown from Chief People Officer to Chief People and AI Transformation Officer. We're seeing this a little bit more often right now, as obviously AI is becoming more and more important. I want to understand, what has your journey been like for you, and how has it changed the way that you lead?
Well, one of the neat things is that when we think about AI transformation, there are two words in that term. The first is AI and the second is transformation. When I think about the transformation part in particular, chief people officers, CHROs, that has always been our business, both at like the individual talent level and at the organization level. And so a lot of those same principles, frameworks, and tools that our teams already have in our people organization are very relevant when it comes to AI transformation. Now, of course, the new word in the mix is AI. And there too, we're talking about ways of working, right? This is what CHROs and people teams think about every day. What are the core units of activity that generate results? And with AI transformation, we're increasingly thinking about that, not simply with people, but across people and AI.
And I've noticed that at Zapier, you've positioned yourself as an AI first company. A bold statement. We've seen some other companies redact their words on those statements. So I want to understand what's changed most at Zapier in terms of how teams operate, how they make decisions, and how you move work forward.
Yeah, I have also seen that some teams have taken the AI first off the website. It's still very much there, but there's a second term that's always right beside it at Zapier. We say AI first, human centered. AI first, human centered. No matter how many agents Zapier ends up having doing the work of sales or marketing or accounting or engineering, it's always going to roll up to humans. It's always going to roll up to humans, right? And so when we say human-centered, that's not hand-wavy, squishy stuff. Like, that's reality, right? Humans are accountable for results at the end of the day. Just turns out we're going to, team up with AI, more and more to do that work. And one of the opportunities, as we see it too, when we talk about human-centric, is when we're redesigning the way work works for more speed, higher quality, product reliability, whatever the case may be, we're redesigning the jobs that humans do too. And so while we're at it, we might as well make those jobs better jobs for the people doing the work as well. And so the framework we use around AI results, we call efficiency, quality, and employee experience. And when we're redesigning the work, we insist that we have a theory of the case on how to improve in all three areas.
I would love to double click on this and ask for kind of an example of how you're making this a little bit better. I've recently saw on your website that you're using agentic AI recruiters. And I think that this is kind of a wonderful example of how you're making this better for your recruitment, your sourcing, your talent acquisition team. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of what that process looks like and how that's evolved?
The problems that we were out there to solve with this notion of an agentic recruiter screen, which simply put means at Zapier that when someone is advanced from the application stage to the recruiter screen, which is, simply typically a recruiter meeting with a candidate for the first time live, we now give candidates the option to interview with a AI agent that's trained on the job and all the questions and knows a lot about the company and the culture, can do Q&A at the end. They can choose. Candidate chooses agentic recruiter or human recruiter. That's how it works. But the problem we were solving is that, like a lot of organizations right now, ironically, in part because of AI, the number of applications that we are receiving per opening has gone up a lot, like 50, 60% for most roles just over the last 12 months. And even before that was the case, you would always wake up, those of us that are in talent wondering, like, an application only tells us so much about what the candidate can do. And we just know in our heart of hearts, way before AI, we just weren't getting the opportunity to meet live even once with some probably very promising folks. You could only do that for so many people. Part of what we were solving for is making sure that we could give like a deeper look to a greater ratio and a greater volume of candidates. That's exactly what we're able to do now. Candidates still have the choice, agentic screener or human screener, but we're able to do that screen, which is a much deeper look at what the candidate is capable of, their interests and so on, for 30% more applicants per job than we were before we started doing this. And so for someone like me who actually came up in education, not technology, I love something like this, which expands kind of access, lets a higher ratio of applicants put their best foot forward and give us a chance to get to know each other better. So that's what we're doing with agentic recruiter screens. And importantly, the way that we do it, all that evidence that's generated during the agentic screen is still reviewed by a human at the end, and a human makes the decision. A recruiter makes the decision about whether to advance that candidate to the next stage. It's early days for us. We've been doing it for about 6 months. Importantly, we're tracking the quality improvements in a couple different ways. We're looking at the candidate experience with that. And the candidate experience with these screens is actually quite good. Part of that, I think, is self-selection because the people that are doing them are the folks that wanted to do them. But we're also looking at it in terms of the experience of the recruiters, the savings of time. What is a day in the life for a recruiter in a world where you're not spending most of your week, if you really think about it, preparing for a recruiter screen? Sometimes you're doing last minute scheduling for that screen, typing up notes from that interview, which maybe you weren't able to like be as present in anyway, because you're taking all these notes and trying to figure out what the next question is. And then of course, making the decision. So we've been able to abstract a lot of that. So recruiters are able to consider a much greater pool. And it also just changes what the experience of being a recruiter feels like.
That's phenomenal. I love the fact that your human-centered approach is both the employee experience and the candidate experience. And it seems like no matter who has an interaction with Zapier, it's always human first in that sense. And I think that that's pretty impressive what you've been able to achieve there, Brandon. One of the other cool things about kind of Zapier's business is, if I'm not mistaken, you're a fully remote business model. So I'd love to understand how you're maintaining kind of that work culture and helping your managers lead through this shift in a way that still feels distinctly human.
One of the interesting benefits of being an all remote company in this moment is that when you are a truly all remote company, and we have been since we started 15 years ago, is that you become fairly good quickly at writing things down and making knowledge easy for people to find. We have folks in 42 countries all over the world, and all the time zones that come with that. It's not a particularly meeting heavy culture, but that means we do need to be good at writing things down. Now, there are two benefits of that. One, when you're guiding change with people, having information written down rather than pass through in meetings, and maybe someone was out that day or returned from leave, and like they're just missing information. Where are we and where are we going? So that's a place where really good documentation and knowledge access or knowledge discovery is incredibly important. Now, interestingly, when it comes to our people increasingly working with agents to get things done together, that documentation layer becomes essential for AI being able to do anything useful, because that same documentation that's helpful for humans is essential for AI to make high context decisions with our team members.
Fantastic. It's so impressive to see how far this is moving. But how long have you been using AI agents at Zapier? What's sort of the experience and maturity that your team have in this space?
The first experience that Zapier had with what I would consider true agents was through our own Zapier Agents product. And that really started getting wall-to-wall use throughout the company about 18 months ago. Now, by AI agent, I mean AI that can be given a task, and based on the information and the arms and the legs, like what you give it access to, different applications and what have you, can dynamically figure out the best way to achieve the task. So it's not just doing exactly what you told it to step by step, it's actually generating the recipe or the steps itself within predefined access controls and guardrails. So that's how we qualify what an agent is. And for us, about 18 months ago is when we started building with agents in earnest.
Fascinating. I can't wait to pick up this conversation in maybe 6 months' time and just see how advanced it's now become. But this is pretty impressive stuff. One of the things I really want to understand, kind of, when you're looking at AI from an AI transformation role in the seat that you sit in, Brandon, is what have you had to personally unlearn as a leader that's helped with your organization adapt to this kind of new pace, iterative pace, kind of a technology build approach to a human-centric way of working? Really keen to find that out.
There are two things in particular that you make me think about, and they're both reminders. The first reminder is great ideas come from everywhere, especially in a moment like this. And that requires two things of me as a leader. One, just extra levels of curiosity. Get really interested in like sitting down with a recruiter or a compensation analyst or a growth marketer or product manager and just like really understanding a day in the life and how they're thinking about where the opportunities are. So that's thing one, is like curiosity wins the day. That's not new, but wow, is it important now? The second actually has to do with budget and investments. Right now at Zapier, we have fairly unconstrained budget for AI use within the organization because this is a season of unusual creativity and experimentation. And for a leader, whether you're the CFO or the chief people officer or whoever, right? It's like, I feel that's it's a little different, right? Now, we've been able to capture some value and allocate some budget from other places to make that happen. But we're from a finance point of view, operating with a very different mindset in this moment, but I think it's a good match based on the opportunity.
And one of the recent things that I saw, which I think was truly groundbreaking, is the fact that it seems like you're now measuring either OKRs or you're now looking at the individual's consumption of using AI technologies and kind of relating that back to the token usage and seeing whether they're getting, the most out of AI and if they're overusing it, underusing it. Can you explain a little bit more about where you are on that journey and what that looks like?
Yes, these dashboards look at like daily or weekly active usership of our core AI tools, whether that's Cursor, Zapier, Claude Code, and so on. But then we're also looking at the actual like units of activity within those tools, which in many cases are tokens. And these dashboards don't tell us how someone's using AI. They don't tell us what kind of value they are creating, and they don't tell us what the experience of doing that work that way is for the humans doing the work, which is ultimately what we're interested in. But it does give us a sense of where to get particularly curious. For example, if I'm looking at a dashboard, a token usage dashboard for my team, the people team at Zapier, and I see two individuals have like really spiky token usage, do I know what's going on? Is that good? Is that not good? I don't know. But it does help me get curious. And I can sit down and be like, wow, like your token usage is 10 times higher than your next closest peer on the team. How have you been using AI this week? Like, teach me, show me, right? And we might discover some golden paths, it's something about the way they're doing it, or even the way they're thinking about why they should be doing it, that is extensible and very valuable to the rest of the team. We might find, and it's not an either or, it could be both, honestly. When I sit down with someone, they might be using it in certain ways that are actually anti-patterns. Maybe they are just trying to get a job done in a particularly token consumptive way, and there's a much better way to do that, right? But no matter what the learning is, the most important thing is we're not using these dashboards to performance manage, and we're not making any judgments based on the dashboards alone, but it does give us a way to be curious. And like we were talking about earlier, like if we stay curious, we're going to learn faster, and I think we're going to make the most of this opportunity.
Brandon, love the actionable advice you shared, and I think that's is something that a lot of leaders are probably going to be looking at in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. The fact that you're already there shows that you're setting the pace and truly innovating in here. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience with us. Looking forward to connecting soon. Appreciate you.
It's a pleasure.
As AI reshapes the workplace, the real game changer will not just be the technology, but how leaders use it to strengthen people, culture, and performance. To explore practical ideas for building more human-centered organizations in the age of AI, join us at Work Human Live, HR's most transformative event in Orlando from April the 27th to the 30th. We've secured an exclusive 30% discount for you and your team so you can lead the rise. Go visit workhumanlive.com and apply the discount code HRLeaders and experience one of the most important events in the 2026 HR calendar.